Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Foul Ball Safety Now News. We're working every day or every week to try to bring broadcasts to people like you. Excited to talk about what's happening in the summer of 2025 with baseball audiences and other folks that are also interested in learning about Foul Ball Safety Now and its campaign. Before I bring on our guests for today, as people know, our format is we turn the tables and our guests are then asking us the questions. Sometimes they come to this issue knowing a little bit about it, and then after a few days, they're ready to go and bring us the questions that we're looking to hear. So we'll turn it over soon to our guests. Before that, I wanted to discuss a few things in the news that I'm going to bring to your attention. We are dealing with the whistleblower situation in Queens College, New York, where we put a couple letters out to the Queens College administration about the situation where the balls are flying outside the ballpark next to an elementary school where there are school students walking. And if people go to Foul Ball Safety Now, you'll see under Queens College investigation, 2 letters we've written to the administration. We did get something back on our first letter. We're still waiting for a response on our second letter, but we do believe a forum on this matter will happen. That being said, I want everyone to go to Foul Ball Safety Now when you have an opportunity and look at all things we've been doing over the last 6 years, from plane flyovers to press releases to interviews. We did get some major media publications a few years back, but we still are doing work to try to keep this in the news. So without further ado, I want to turn it over soon to our guests. But before that, I want to turn it over to my co-host, Brianna Ludwig. Say hi.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here today.
Thank you, Brianna. And now we have our guest for today. Very excited to talk again with Quinlan Frankie. Quinlan is a soccer referee. She's been a soccer referee now for more than 10 years. Quinlan, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Great, great. Did you also play soccer?
I did. I played soccer till I was about 13, and then I figured out I could get paid to run around, so I stopped doing it for free.
Terrific. So, Quinlan, are you ready to turn the questions on us and ask us questions about the issues? We're excited to hear them.
Yeah, totally.
What do you have for us?
So through my research, I did see a bit about umpires getting hit with the foul balls and whatnot. And me being a soccer referee, let's just say I'm passionate about issues about, umpires and referees getting injured on the job. Do the umpires get any injury pay for if they're hit? Because I know they could get pretty injured if the foul ball hits them right.
Yeah, the one that we learned earlier this spring was Hunter Windelstadt. He was the umpire that was standing behind first base, probably 100 feet away. From home to first, it's 90 feet, and he was about 10 feet behind the bag. He hasn't been back to work in like 3 months. I'm not sure the long-term extent of his injury. I would think that he's being compensated by his union. You would think that this sort of medical package and compensation package that he's collecting an income. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to go back to work anytime soon. I'm not sure how long his benefits will remain. I would think he's getting paid right now, a regular salary, but I'm not sure exactly what that will mean later on.
Where was he hit? Was he hit in the head?
Yes, he was hit in the head. On the website Foul Ball Safety Now, we have something called Exhibit A2. Exhibit A2, which is a video of Hunter Windelstadt getting hit by the line drive, unfortunately, a few months ago. And it's pretty graphic, but the umpires do not wear helmets or face masks. And he was hit straight in the head, and he's been out of work ever since.
Yeah, that's real unfortunate. Speaking of compensation for the fans that get hit, do you know if they get any, I don't know, if they get any compensation or any money from, I guess, would it be the owners of the stadium because they would be liable?
There's something called the baseball rule. In most states, the baseball rule is recognized as when you come to the games, you as a fan, you're assuming the risk. So if anything should happen to you,
Oh.
a baseball or even a slip and fall, potentially, you may not be compensated. We know baseballs have hurt people. We also know that people in the business of selling hot dogs at the baseball games have thrown hot dogs at people more as fun and games. But one time there was the edge of the hot dog wrapper scratched somebody's cornea, and apparently the team didn't even want to compensate the stadium, and the team didn't even want to compensate the fan for their scratched cornea. So it's really like, a carnival atmosphere, if you will,
Yeah.
or even like, who goes to a facility where they can potentially get hurt. It's a community for 3 hours, sure, right? Sure, there's a lot of
Mhm.
people in these seats, and there's a lot of people walking around, so potentially somebody could slip or somebody could be hit by a foul ball. Baseball thought of about everything when it comes to the baseball rule. They don't want to be held
Mhm.
responsible, whether it's a baseball or anything else. I'm not 100% sure about all things within the ballpark liability wise, but things like throwing hot dogs at fans, getting scratch corners, you would think that the least the team would do is not hide behind the baseball rule or say we're not responsible, to be decent. But when it
Yeah.
comes to the foul balls, unfortunately, most cases really never make it to the lawyer's office because in most states, if somebody gets really hurt by a foul ball, a lawyer in a particular state is going to say, well, I can't afford to do all these hours worth of work and then find out that your case won't even be received. So they don't even bother taking the case.
I mean, for those that are in, I would say in like the home run area, those
Mhm.
are the kids and people that show up with their gloves and they try to catch,
Mhm.
the home run balls and
Yes.
whatnot. So like those I can somewhat understand, but like when you're in the foul ball area, especially when you're behind the net, you're kind of
Uh-huh.
like assuming I would like to not be hit by a baseball.
Right.
Yeah, so that just seems kind of like, it's all about like liability and like costing money and whatnot. But, if you're wanting people to return, it seems like you'd wanna focus on, like, those who don't wanna get hit by baseballs to, 1, ensure they're not hit, and if they are hit, that they're properly seen to.
I think most people are coming to the game thinking they really don't want to be hit. But I think baseball's failed for 100 years to not really relate that and never were able to even close to guarantee anything like that. And the nets may be an illusion of being in a place where you're safe, but there's the aspects of balls going over nets, sometimes at high speeds, still making it over
Yeah.
nets and making it to you, and sometimes where it goes up high and then it comes down, where it can still do some damage. I've been more focusing on the balls that really come at you at very fast straight line drives, and those are so obvious and so preventable. And when business as usual in at least 40 cities right now in the United States where there's no netting past end of dugouts, I'll say approximately 40, where there's no nets past end of dugouts, that's dark ages. I can't really endorse the way baseball's doing business because of their lack of transparency. That with an
Yeah.
intelligent one-page memo, we can all be more educated, but we're not given that one pager to study for a few minutes about maybe there's some questions that we need to raise about whether our safety is in order for these 3 hours. About the home run balls, all I'll say about that is I see 11-year-olds out there catching balls with gloves, but I've also seen 11-year-olds out there, catching balls to their head because maybe they're just not ready in 2 seconds or however long it takes to go 300 feet. Some of these fences are short or shorter than
Mhm.
other, and are they really ready for that? I was bringing up an example the other day where they had the all-star game home run hitting contest, and they had teenagers or young kids out in the outfield. They weren't in the infield, they weren't 90 or 100 feet away, they were 150 or 200 feet away. But are they really ready to catch a line drive to the head? Like a couple of years ago, there was one of these kids that was standing in the outfield, maybe one of the baseball players' nephews, or the local little league was invited to shag some flies. These aren't shagging flies. These are taking line drives at 100
Yeah.
miles an hour. They're not ready for those 100-mile-an-hour balls, and that's why some young person got hurt. a couple of years ago at an all-star game.
Yeah, totally. That's totally understandable. Speaking of the net, I know there was some backlash about people not really wanting the nets because it might like obstruct the view. How obstructive is the netting towards the view?
Well, from what I hear, people once they see the netting now is if they're pretty much getting used to it right away, and it's not really interfering with their thoughts that maybe their view would have been obstructed. But the fact that over the years, even back in 1970, when unfortunately a 14-year-old boy died, and let's say the nets weren't fully developed and seeing through as clear as they are now back in 1970, it still would have been beneficial for 45 years to have had the discussion with people and letting them know this is the technology we have in 1970 or 1975 or 1980 when it comes to the netting. You'll still be able to see through. We strongly believe you will, but it has to be there because it's going to be inevitable that all of these line drives are going to be coming in this direction, giving people an option to becoming educated as opposed to not giving them the true facts about their data. Like on our website, Foul Ball Safety Now, we have Exhibit A1, which is mathematical report and demonstrates just how many foul balls have been going into sections and how often. And that's a very clear indication that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of balls traveling into seats. I'm not sure exactly how many of them are going at 100 into those sections, but you'll see Exhibit A1 does demonstrate a percentage of balls that do go into these highly exposed areas and sometimes very fast. Would it been beneficial for the management to, instead of echoing the sentiment of the fan who has a little knowledge about netting and says, we don't want our views obstructed, would it been beneficial for management to say, people, we need to educate you first and foremost about what the reality is, and then we can discuss the latest technology in netting? I think that's what should have been the obligation of management. Certainly, we're further along with netting technology now in 2025.
And so with the nets, do you know, because
Yes,
with soccer goals specifically,
yes.
they're changed just about every game, even if, you
Mhm.
know, if people like they were scored in or not, the
Right.
the stadium changes them every game in order
Oh,
to
that's
tend to
true.
them, keep them fresh and whatnot.
Sure.
How tended to are these nets? I mean, are they like
Huh.
examined every game for any holes? Are they replaced
Sure.
often?
We're aware of some faulty net situation from a number of years ago, but it's highly unlikely. I would think that the local maintenance stadium and team are looking out for those little holes that may come about where a ball can squeeze through. Probably a lot of little squares to count every day, but there's probably some sort of technology that goes through all those little squares to make sure that no balls are going to get through. I'm not really following that. Most injuries come not through faulty nets.
Yeah, that's just something I'm a bit curious about because again, in soccer,
Yeah, I knew of
the
one.
nets
I've
are
heard of one and
religiously.
oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because of the tension and they wanna make sure that the ball's not gonna get through on the next
Yeah.
time and get through. I'm not sure exactly what the maintenance is, but fortunately, we haven't heard of too many. I have learned of 1 or maybe 2 in these years of doing foul ball safety now. So, not exactly sure.
Oh, that's good to know. And finally, one of the stadiums I know you're focusing on is a minor league stadium. And obviously, minor league, they should have the same amount of safety as like major league stadiums or major league games. I'm just curious because, when you see minor league games, it tends out to be like a full stadium and there tends to be a lot of gaps, like between the seats.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
how would you incentivize the owner of the stadium and the fans about like extending the netting? Would it be encourage the extending and netting, or would you maybe encourage that they only have the sections within the netting available? And then if
Mhm.
they buy more than those, then it's a discussion of okay, well then let's extend the netting. But I mean, if you just have
Mhm.
everyone buying their seats in those sections, I'm just
Mhm.
wondering what your thoughts are on that, on how to maybe appease them a little bit.
Sure. If you had an independent netting council for every single ballpark, they would definitely be able to present us a solution to exactly how to deal with this matter. So we may not be math and science guys or able to determine how high, far, and wide the nets need to be, but there clearly are people that are well equipped to tell us, to say, this is appropriate for this age group. This is not appropriate for this age group, or this is where there'll be no risk, or this will be where there's some risk, this where there'll be a greater risk. All these kind of things could definitely, finally be exchanged between people that are not experts or people that are. So let's say we're not experts, the three of us, and then we have another conversation with another 12 people, and we're still not experts, but we'll all know exactly what we need to present to the experts. And then finally, it'll be determined that maybe this was unsafe all along, clearly, undeniably. And maybe this would have been more appropriate all along, about the fact that maybe a ball may come up and still may come down, and it would have still presented a risk if there were no nets above people's heads. So to the major degree of straight line drives coming at us, to pop-ups coming up and coming down, which may be another way of getting out of the way with a little bit more time. But all of this kind of stuff finally needs to be addressed historically. And clearly, we're in 2025 in the dark ages, and these minor league professional ballparks, clearly, I know when people will watch Exhibit A from 2019, and we can tell them approximately 40 cities still don't have netting past the end of dugouts, some with even exposure over the dugout, they're going to be upset because it clearly demonstrates inappropriate conduct for a facility to open up their doors this way, leaving this major gap, major exposure. Why I say we're in the dark ages in 2025 is because that is so evident. About all the other factors where some teams may have extended the nets further down the lines, I'm not one to say. We know balls are flying inside ballparks and going over nets and hitting people and hurting people. We know of balls unfortunately flying outside at some of these smaller ballparks. We know of a settlement in a case in California over the summer, just not too long ago, at the end of July, where a woman was standing outside a ballpark in Modesto, California, where she got hit in the head a year ago. And the lawyers actually found us at Foul Ball Safety Now and asked us some questions a few months ago before their trial. And we just learned that it was settled at a court. And unfortunately, we may not know all the details of the settlement because a lot of people who get hurt, they'll end up signing a piece of paper where they don't discuss the case. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they're not able to go into great detail.
I often refer to the nets as a mirage of safety, which might seem extreme to some people, but since coming to this campaign and learning everything that I've learned with Jordan over the past almost a year now, there are cases of people who are still getting injured and they're sitting behind the nets thinking that they're okay. It's just heartbreaking.
Like you said, there's that baseball rule or the baseball code where you go to a baseball game understanding that you'll be hit and whatnot. But I mean, especially those with kids don't know that. Kids don't understand it, and kids are the most likely to be hit. So it feels like there should be more responsibility, especially when it comes to like the kids and whatnot, of understanding. I mean, like in soccer, a couple years ago, we had a new law that banned kids from heading the ball until the age of 13 because we were getting too many young children, like age of 9 and whatnot, trying to head the ball and not doing it right because they don't know the proper technique and getting concussions. So FIFA just said, all right, you're not allowed to head the ball until you're 13, and goalies aren't allowed to punt the ball until they're 12. I feel like it's just one of those things where like you have to take in consideration of how many kids are going to be there, what kids do understand and don't understand, and how you go about keeping them safe.
Yeah, and I really agree with Jordan's view that until there is that independent netting council coming in, because every single ballpark is built differently, to do the study and figure out exactly how high, far, and wide the nets need to go to protect people. I wouldn't tell anybody that they were safe sitting behind a net at any ballpark until that
Oh,
happens.
absolutely, yeah. They can, like, understand that, yeah, you might be hit, but it is also need to hammer home that, like, you might be hit because you're not safe. Even if you're behind a net, like, you're not always 100% safe.
There's just a lot of information that is being kept from us. And if people knew every winter, more or less, about how many injuries have going down every spring and summer. And clearly Exhibit A1, excuse me, which is a report I want everyone to check out, a report that the journalist I've been working with Brendan for 6 years now. We looked at, we revisited it, and we made our own input to it. And it's Exhibit A1, and it's demonstration, mathematical, how many foul balls go every game and how many foul balls there are per year and where are the hot zones. And that's straight up reporting from 538 from a few years back, 6 years ago. And we took a look at it, a fresh approach. I think people are going to feel like they're a lot more informed. And this is terrific.
Quinlan, as a soccer referee, where do you draw the line between incidents that are quote unquote just part of the game? And where do you start saying, okay, this is serious and it needs to be addressed and it can't continue being just part of the game?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, injury-wise, there's a lot of very specific laws about what fouls are considered reckless plays and endangerment of plays. Whenever a player does a slide tackle, and if the player doesn't hit the ball at all and just hits the player, that's seen as a reckless play because they are endangering the player, even if they totally don't do it, like they totally don't mean to, and they're just not that good at slide tackling. We have to give them a yellow card because it's an endangerment of play and a reckless play. I know slide tackles are part of the game and whatnot, and there's been a lot of changes, but that's one of the changes where even younger kids are still allowed to slide tackle, which I personally am not a fan of because it requires practice. It requires them to have better control of their bodies and to understand movement and whatnot. I think that's one of the instances where, at least for younger kids, that's something I think needs to be changed, just because I've seen a lot of instances where young kids try to be cool and slide tackle and they end up just their cleats right into the leg of another kid, and it causes a lot of injury and a lot of issues. Because then it's one of those things where, like, are you going to card like a 9-year-old? Because like people get up in arms about that. They are like, that shouldn't be allowed. And I'm like, I agree with you, it shouldn't, but it is. So I can't do a lot about it. That's definitely one of the things. When it comes to, I guess, fans and balls going out into the fans and whatnot, that's not necessarily my jurisdiction. Referees, we're told very strongly, you do not handle spectators. You leave the coaches to handle spectators. Coaches and the owners of the park and the owners of the stadium, they are the ones strictly dealing with spectators. So that's above beyond my jurisdiction. If I get a problem with a spectator, I go to whoever would be responsible for them. Which, if it's like a parent, I'll go to the coach and be like, hey, this spectator's being like ridiculous. You got to get him out of here.
Very good. Very good. All right. I think we may be ready to wrap it up, Brianna. So I'll let everyone know. Please go to Foul Ball Safety Now. I want to thank our guest, Quinlan Frankie. Thanks again, Brianna Ludwig. But please look at Foul Ball Safety Now. Look at all of our reports. We also came out with an injury report a couple of days back. What we found so far in the major leagues, there are significant studies done on foul ball safety, on disclosure of injuries. NBC News did something a few years ago. So if you're finding out about us for the first time, you can find it all at foulballsafetynow.com. Share your thoughts, any comments, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, guys.